Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It is your boy Shad, and today we're here with the recap of game 1 of the NBA Finals, which the Nuggets ended up winning 104-93. There were a lot of things to talk about and focus on, but I really want to highlight these 3 things about this game that I think altered the outcome of the game and are some things to look out for in game 2. First, I want to talk about the offensive battle between these two teams, or really lack thereof. I want to focus on Bam Adebayo's play in general and how that impacts the series for both teams. And I also want to focus on the zone defense and that little 11-0 run to start the fourth quarter. So both teams ended up shooting pretty nasty from three-point land this game. The Heat shot 13 of 39 and the Nuggets went 8 for 29. The Heat had no issues getting up their regular amount of shot attempts. That wasn't the problem. A lot of their open looks just weren't falling because, like I said in the preview video, the Heat know how to generate a lot of open looks, especially a lot of open three-pointers. And this game was no different. However, the shots just weren't falling. How did they get these open looks? There were a lot of DHOs with Bam. There were a lot of off-ball screening actions and a lot of double screening actions at the top of the key in order to open up the corner three. It worked sometimes, didn't work the other times. That's okay, but I think that's a strength for the Heat. Overall, the Heat just could not capitalize on a poor shooting night from the Nuggets. Max Strus ended up going 0 for 10. Duncan Robinson, I think, ended up going 1 for 6. Caleb Martin went 1 for 7. I think besides Max Strus, you're probably not going to get those performances again. And it's no hate to Max Strus. He's just been wildly inconsistent and honestly pretty bad the past couple of games. You cannot be a team that cannot take advantage of a Nuggets team shooting 8 for 29 from 3. That is a lot of points left on the board because I believe we average, 13 or 14 made threes. So that's 15 to 18 points that the Nuggets left on the board in a game where they already scored 104. You cannot be the one that has a poor shooting night against the Nuggets because your defense, more times than not, will have a stretch where it just does not work against the offense, against the Nuggets offense. And that's what you have to account for. And the Heat did not account for that this game. Once they went down by 20, the smallest lead they cut it to was 9. And we'll talk about that in a little bit because the fourth quarter had a lot to do with that. I really just want to credit the entire defense, specifically MPJ and AG, because they played some really good interior defense when the Heat did actually end up driving to the lane. That is also something that is a pretty big talking point from this game because the Heat ended up with 2 free throws, and there was a lot of complaining on social media without understanding why that was the case. And if you watch the game, the Heat were settling for a lot of floaters, a lot of jumpers, a lot of short-range shots instead of committing all the way to Jokic, instead of committing all the way to whatever or whoever was in the paint in order to put pressure on the rim. They just didn't do enough of that, and it cost them a lot in this game. I also want to give specific credit to a couple of the Nuggets players, most specifically MPJ, who I thought had a really, really good defensive game. Despite shooting 2 for 11 from 3 and not really shooting that well from the floor as a whole, I think he impacted the game in a lot of ways. Of course, he was continuing his streak as a tenacious rebounder. He has also stepped up defensively with a lot of help side blocks, a lot of rim protection, a lot of weak side rim protection. MPJ had himself a really good all-around game. Even though the shooting wasn't there, MPJ's impact was felt. And Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic having really good games on their own. That is to be expected. These guys are proven stars. The two-man game was operating at a full level, and Bam playing drop in these situations is kind of iffy, especially when it is that two-man game that is involved, because Jamal Murray loves that open space in the mid-range. And if you're going to play up and play switch or whatever, then Jokic is behind y'all first line of defense, and now the Nuggets are in a numbers advantage, and then Jokic makes the right read. There's a cut, there's a corner pass, whatever it is, Jokic will make that read, and that'll be points for the Nuggets. So Nuggets offense, even though from behind the line it was struggling a bit, the rest of the offense was fairly fluid, and there were a lot of bright spots to carry over for the Nuggets in game 2. The Nuggets are an inside-out team, the most inside-out team that the Heat have played. Like I said in the preview, even though our three-point shot wasn't falling, we didn't fall to the level of 93 points like the Heat. We didn't fall to the level of sub 100 points. We still were able to put up 104 and keep a 20-point lead. At the end of the first quarter, we were 1 for 6 from 3, the Nuggets were. In the fourth quarter, they were 0 for 8 from 3. 2 whole quarters where they shot 1 for 14 from behind the line. That is 39 points potentially left on the board. They weren't going to make them all, but that's a hefty chunk of offense that was just left there. But one of the good things, though, for the Nuggets offense was that they were able to take advantage of that size difference. Everyone knew coming into the series, with Bam being the biggest player that gets heavy minutes, it was going to be a problem for the Heat in terms of matching up with the Nuggets' size. KCP 6'5", MPJ is 6'10", AG is 6'8", and strong as hell. Jokic is just big in general. That's a lot to account for, and in this game, especially in that first quarter, we saw a lot of that size being exploited. Aaron Gordon finished that first quarter with 12 points on 6 of 8 shooting from the field. All interior shots. He was getting mismatches with Gabe Vincent. He was getting Caleb Martin on him. He got Duncan Robinson on him, Max Strus on him. He got Jimmy Butler on him a couple times too. AG recognized what his role would be. Now, I said that I was expecting an AG 20-point game. He got pretty damn close. He looked like he was well on his way toward it at the end of the first quarter. He did end up finishing with 16, but it was still a really, really efficient game from him, and it was a really good game on defense for him as well. And because of this, I don't think the Heat can really play switch anymore because the Nuggets just have so many different mismatches they can attack. I think you kind of just have to stay steady with the one-on-one play. I don't think you can do the switching. I don't think you can do the full drop coverage on PNRs with Jamal and Jokic. It's hard, but you're going to have to ask a lot of your perimeter players because Bam cannot do it all, and they expected him to do a lot in that game. And he is actually the second section that I want to talk about, or the second thing that I want to talk about. Bam had a phenomenal game. He had 26 points, 13 boards, 5 assists. He shot 52% of them field. He took 25 shots. It was an overall really, really strong game from Bam defensively and offensively, because defensively, even though Jokic did put up a 27-point triple-double, Bam was still able to play a lot of good, aggressive, strong defense in the post. He wasn't letting Jokic get his way with some of his spin moves that he likes to do against taller defenders. He wasn't really overpowering Bam, which is one of the things that plays to Bam's strength, is the fact that he has that lower center of gravity, and he is just naturally a really, really strong center. He made some shots tough, and he knocked Jokic off his spots, which is all you can really ask for in terms of defending Jokic, especially if you are undersized. Make him work, get him a little bit more tired, and make everything just harder. Make the entry passes into the free throw line or to the post harder. You have to make his life difficult. In terms of Bam having 26 points, I know I saw a lot of people saying that this was a strong point for the Heat in terms of how to beat the Nuggets. And while I do agree, I think it is good and bad. Good because once you can get Bam in an offensive groove and finding him in spots where he can score, your whole offense is better for it. However, in a game where your three-point shot isn't particularly falling, I know they still ended up making 13, but 33% is still 6% lower than their playoff average. If you can keep Bam to shooting 15-footer, 10, 15-footer, 5, 8-footer, whatever, and keep the threes from either going up or falling, the Nuggets will take that 9 times out of 10. We will let Bam average 26, 25, 30 points even. It's a simple math problem. And we keep coming back to this, but the state of the NBA is it's a threes league. You live and die by the three. A lot of teams do that now. That's the philosophy. The Nuggets don't live and die by it, which is why I think they're here. And the Heat have lived by it. There were some series where, they started, I think, 45 in the first series, and then go down to 34, and then back up to 40 plus, and then down to 40 minus. Like, they were an up and down three-point shooting team all playoffs long, but when they are hot, they won a lot of games. They were on fire. And it's not something to take lightly, because we saw they made 13, they still got up 40 three-pointers, and a lot of those were open looks. I expect a similar game from the Heat in game 2 in terms of three-point shooting and Bam's performance. I think with Jokic just being able to preserve energy, I think a little bit on the defensive side, because Bam is being played very low. Those pick and rolls are being played in a drop coverage by the Nuggets, which means Jokic just gets to sit in the middle and wait for Bam to come to him. Now, this is good and bad because Bam can get downhill. If he was aggressive or more aggressive instead of taking those floaters, he'd probably get some more foul calls called on Jokic, but instead, he's settling for that mid-range area. That needs to change for next game. I think that was the big difference. Bam can score 26 points next game and either be just as ineffective in this one, or he can be much, much more effective and help the Heat win a game with the same amount of points. It just depends on how you get there and what pressure you're putting on the defense to do it. And lastly, I want to talk about this fourth quarter run that the Heat went on to start the last quarter. It was technically a 14-0 run from the last 3 points in the third to 11 in the start of the fourth. But one of the things, or a few of the things that I noticed in this section, the zone was pretty damn effective. There were times outside of this period where the zone was working, and I think that is a bright spot for the Heat. I think it can't be utilized a lot because of just how deadly the Nuggets offense is and how potent their passing is, but I think there were some bright spots with it. that they can carry on over to game 2, but I think in just less frequency and in more intentional moments. But yeah, their 11-0 run in the fourth cut the lead down to 10. Like I said, from that point on, they didn't really get any closer, but in this section, it started off with a Haywood Highsmith steal on Jamal Murray after playing full court pressure. And Haywood Highsmith himself had a really, really good game. I know that he's not the focus of this section, but I do want to give my props to him because he came off the bench, 18 points, really good defense in the zone, really good defense against one-on-one. He had a strip steal against Jokic in the post. That man came off the bench and proved his worth and proved the fact that I think he needs to be getting those minutes over Max Strus, because Max Strus provided absolutely nothing this game and Haywood Highsmith provided infinitely more than him. So shout out to Haywood. You played a really, really good game, and I look forward to seeing you more in game 2. Back to the zone. In the fourth quarter, when the Nuggets were matched up against it in this 11-0 run, they went 0 for 4 against the zone. And you saw a variety of different ways in how the Heat were stopping the offense with the zone. So a lot of it came down to not letting Jokic catch the ball in the middle of the paint. You have to keep him above the free throw line if you want the zone to work. They ran the zone a lot more in the non-Jokic minutes than they did the Jokic minutes, but they still ran them. But that was the plan. In the non-Jokic minutes, can you exploit the big drop-off in passing and playmaking ability when he goes to the bench? Can you pressure someone to try to beat the zone by themselves? Do you cut off the passing lanes? Can you do it? The Heat showed that they can. Like I said, there were other sections in this game, especially in the second quarter, where the zone was getting a lot of stops and for a couple straight possessions was halting the Nuggets defense or the offense. And that's a really, really good sign for them. Unfortunately, like I said, the zone probably can't be played a lot. There's just too many breakers in our offense, and there was a couple possessions where Jamal Murray got the ball in the middle of the zone and Bam kind of just lazily contests. Jokic did the same thing, like KCP did the same thing, and Jeff Green was able to cut and find the slot in the zone defense. And there are a lot of weaknesses and there are some strengths to it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in game 2. In terms of the magical word adjustments that I think the Heat will employ for next game, I think there will be a lot more cutting actions. In order to continue to generate those open looks, you need to keep the Nuggets moving on defense. That's what one of their strengths was in game 1, and I expect that to carry over into game 2, just in a bunch of different areas on the court, because I do think that they're going to pressure the rim a lot more in game 2, especially Jimmy Butler, because he had a pretty pedestrian game this game. I think they either go no more doubles on Jokic or just send a really hard double on the catch, because this game there were a couple of lazy doubles, and if you're going to lazily double Jokic, you better be damn sure your backline defense is tip top, because once that first pass goes, you're mismatched. You're outnumbered, and that's that. And I think the Heat will play a little bit less zone, but just, like I said, in more intentional moments. As far as the Nuggets adjustments, I think there are going to be a lot more cutting actions against the zone when the Heat do deploy it. I think Jokic is going to get more shots earlier in the game because it took a long time for him to get his first shot attempt. I think it took until the 3-second mark of the first quarter until Jokic actually put up a shot. So look forward to that. A little bit more early offense for Jokic. And I look forward to whatever adjustment they make to account for a potentially bigger body playing more minutes for the Heat. We saw Cody Zeller get a couple possessions. They weren't really good. He got cooked, especially that one play where he just fell. Like, he was off balance, Jokic was moving forward, and he just fell, and that was kind of emblematic of the Zeller-Jokic matchup. How we exploit the bigger bodies, whether it be with more ball movement, whether it be with more on-ball screens from certain different players, like MPJ involved in screens, yada yada. I'm looking forward to that. Overall, I think it was a really good game for the Nuggets. I think the Heat also showed some things that, despite scoring just 93 points, I think that they can carry over into game 2 and feel better about their chances of winning. But Nuggets up 1-0, 3 more to go, baby. I'm going to talk to y'all later for game 2. Peace out.